Hey guys, Billy Holmes, Holmes Hot Rod and Cycles, and today, day 2 of the wiring job. We're going to start where we left off, and we're going to jump right into it. Y'all stay tuned. All right, so let's go ahead and make that 6x5 piece that we need for the inside. Get some of this stuff out of the way. We're just going to use the same piece that we've already used. And this is just going to be a rough template. We'll be able to fine tune it once we get it closer on there. So box over here and mount those two holes, see where they need to be, and then that way we can bolt it to the back of it and then shape it to whatever we need. So let's get some of this stuff out of the way. Keep these little panels. Alright, this is the only pain, is bringing this whole wiring harness over here to do that. So basically we have this little panel. You can see how much we're going to cut off of it. That's a little bit too big there, but we just wanted to kind of run a base. The other tricky part is these holes here are not big enough to put like something like this or a pencil or a pen or anything like that in there. So sometimes put it here, and then you have to trace around the holes a little bit to kind of give you a, well, this pin's kind of not the best, huh? All right, let's start over there. Okay. Like I said, just to kind of rough idea of where the hole is going to be. All right. Get this fuse box out of the way. All right, so we see the hole. It's there. In there. Okay. So once this is put on, like I showed you, you can see that you don't need all of this extra paneling hanging out. All you really need is just a little bit on the outsides of here, and we should be good to go. You can see that the metal is going to cover the wires. It's going to hold it inside just like that. So a lot of this metal is not needed, so we're going to trim this down a little bit to something that's a little bit easier to work with. This square here, and it's getting on my nerves. Okay, so we're going to cut a lot of this off, trying to see how we want to do it. We'll cut that off, and then we'll cut just a little bit off the side here. And then we'll round the edges. So let's go ahead and do that. Grab my scissors. Okay, one thing I will note while I'm thinking about it, the hole is not going to be this big. That is the outside of that leg. So the bolt itself is going to be a lot smaller. So do not drill that out. The size of that hole or that leg will slide in it and not be what you're looking for. So keep that in mind. All right, so we got this. So we can go ahead and round the edges off. You can cut this off a little bit here if you didn't want all of this. It's going to be a sharp edge. I actually like keeping it, and I'll show you. I like keeping it outside the wires just so the wires do not rub. You can cut, for what I'm saying is, if you cut a line here, basically if you bend it over like this, it's technically all you need to mount it, but then you have a sharp edge right here on these wires that may rub. So if you give it a good back here, it's not going to rub on any sharp edges that are out here. So that's what I like it to look like. I will round the edges off, and so there's no sharp corners, but we're going to keep it pretty much like it is. All right, so what I decided to do is, instead of running the 4 bolts to hold the fuse box piece here, it's a little overkill. I mean, it's not going to go anywhere really. I'm going to run 2 bolts the opposite side of this. So if you flip this over, what I'll do is I'll mark this hole and this hole here, and it'll be opposite of this. So it'll set it off about this much. It'll allow me to get the bolt and the nut through here and tighten that up. It'll allow me to get the bolt and the nut to tighten this to the firewall, and then that will give 2 points of contact to hold the fuse box like that. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the 2 opposite holes, which is going to be that one and that one. Go ahead and drill this out. Okay, we're going to go ahead and cut this piece out. Drill these 2 holes. I don't want to drill in my bench. And we're going to drill down to that 3rd mark. There's the third mark. Third mark. Okay, there's the panel. We'll put the, we'll have to find the bolts if they included some. If not, we'll have to get some. But it's going to sit just like this. For now, it'll be like this. We'll go ahead and drill the two opposite sides. All right, so hopefully y'all can kind of see what I'm talking about now. I just kind of mocked this up a little bit here, but so I mounted the fuse box to the inner panel so it will hold itself, and then I'm going to go ahead and get, you know, 1 or 2 inch spacers in between here. This is going to be mounted on the outside of the firewall, so there'll be a gap like this, and what that allows you to do is, 1, get to these nuts and bolts, and then 2, I got to get this set of wires down here through this hole. So it can't be too close, it can't be like this, because then your wires will never get to it. So it's going to have to be, you know, 1.5 inches off or something like that. Sit like that. That way the wires can pass up behind it and then go through the firewall. So that sets it off firewall. This allows it to bolt to the panel, and then it's all good to go. So pretty simple design. I think it'll look good. We'll powder coat this side, put a rubber grommet on it. We'll get nice, like maybe black hardware here, since we're going to be powder coating it black. This panel here, we can just paint, spray paint, or leave like it is. It's galvanized, so it's not going to rust or anything like that. But that's what it's going to look like. Can't really see it from the cab point of view, but if you could look at it from the side, it would look like that. Okay, so we got the wiring harness pretty much finalized before we put it in the truck. We went ahead and got the one panel painted. This is just spray paint. You're not really going to see it, but we got that one off. We got the front one for the firewall sent off to powder coat, so we're going to have to wait on that. We are going to temporarily mock this up against the inside of the firewall, just so we can start running these wires. But you'll see that I went ahead and got everything pretty much zip tied. I added a few wires. I had to add a reverse light wire. I noticed in the harness it did not have that. This truck has reverse lights, so I went ahead and ran a reverse light wire, and then there's probably a couple more wires that I'm going to have to run that I'm noticing that this harness did not come with, but that is all dependent on the type of vehicle that you have. So let's go ahead, get this temporarily mocked up in the truck, and start installing this thing and kind of running wires where it needs to go. Okay, so what we're going to do is go ahead and temporarily mount the fuse box onto the firewall. We're going to not worry about the spacing right off the bat. That we can do later. I just want to get this where it's going to sit in place. See if I can go ahead and put the nut on the other side. Fuse box is mounted just temporarily. Sorry for the not the best filming and lighting It is what it is with this. That's why people hate it. So we're going to start routing this where everything needs to go. Hopefully not get it tangled up too bad. Okay, so these two here are going to go outside the cab up here. So we're going to want to route that to the top along with the radio and the ignition. One of these being the engine stuff, like the oil pressure, the water temperature, stuff like that. Now, with his gauge, we are going to use a mechanical oil pressure, so we're not going to worry about this line. We are just going to trim it and stick it in the loom. That is a very popular upgrade, so I'm not going to take the whole wire out. I'll just stick it in the loom. I'll put some heat shrink on the end of it, basically cap it off, and if he ever wanted to change to a electric oil pressure, he can do that. So taking a closer look, you can kind of see we got it somewhat drooped in here. We're going to need to get this here. Let me get it down a little bit smaller. Here, we're going to have to get this closer to the firewall. So we'll probably use one of these holes. I don't know if you can see my finger, and use some type of clamp to clamp this down that way to get it so it's not hanging that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go see if we can find a clamp and clamp all of these to the firewall, make it look a little bit better. Okay, so you'll see that all of these are ran together, and this is what I mean by zip ties being temporarily. I'm not going to leave this zip tie here, this zip tie here, this zip tie here, and then all the other ones. Those were before I put them in the truck. I just wanted to kind of separate where they belong, but I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do here at that point. But now that these are going to be tied together, I'm going to remove this one, remove this one, remove this one, and any more that are separating, and I'll just put one there when I'm done. It'll look a lot cleaner. It keeps it from being bulky like this and pushing through. You can see that where it's pushing it away. I just wanted to kind of point that out. That's what I mean about, you know, zip ties being temporarily, just kind of temporarily placed and not permanent. Don't be afraid to cut zip ties. I mean, they're like 1 cent a piece, if that. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when we're done. We're going to put a clamp here and start wrapping all of this up. So that's what I'm meaning there. Now that it's all in one, branch or stump or whatever you want to call it, you can go back and you can put one zip tie instead of 3 different ones. And same way, if you look up here, once I figure out where all of these are going to go 100%, I can cut these temporarily ones out and then clamp them all around the top, and it minimizes the zip ties. It'll end up looking like this, where they're all one branch is in zip ties like that and like that. You'll see I got 2 or 3 of them tied up in there. They're all going the same direction. And so now I can start putting them all together in one clamp or one zip tie. Okay, so let's take a look at where we're at. Sorry, I'm not going to film this, guys. It's just me, my head, my shoulders, everything like that. Just not going to be a good experience. But let's take a look at kind of where I got laid out now. So we temporarily have the fuse box mounted. We have the lights for the brights, the wires for the brights here, and then the fuel gauge and the dome light in the back are going to run down here. I usually tape them to the floor and then put them under the seal. This big wire here is for the front compartment. Once the fuse box is spaced off, we'll run that up underneath and through that bulkhead that we made. This is some accessory wires that I honestly, that's just a whole lot of wires. I may cut here and just put a connector on it in case he ever wants to run anything. He can just connect that rather than trying to hide this or, you know, hang it up on something or anything like that. So I may just end up cutting that. These three wires here for the brake and the reverse, which are going to go down here on the column and then right up in here on the brake switch once all of that's done. So those three wires are going to chill there. The rest of them are pretty much in place. I have them coming up here. I mounted them to the firewall, and then the left one's split, which are going to be the light switch and the dash. I'll put the gauges up here just to get them out of the way. These will be a lot shorter. I'll probably cut them here, put that connector on, and then they'll connect to the gauges. So I won't use any of these. I'm just getting them out of the way. The light switch is here. This will plug in whether it's on the side or upside down, but you got plenty of there. That's going to go over there. Then the other branch comes up here, is held on by this. I will zip tie this when we're done. I just don't want to zip tie it just this second and then have to put another wire once I realize I forgot one. You have the steering column plug and the ground, which are usually somewhere in this area. You can mount it and it can just sit up here. So that's good to go. And then the rest of them are going to the middle of the vehicle or the side. So we have the radio lights, radio wires. So that I just put over here to get out of the way. You have your ignition wires, your 3 ignition wires, which will run right here. Truthfully, it looks like they didn't give me enough, so I'm probably going to have to, you know, put either a connector on it, a quick connector, or splice a little bit longer wires. It looks like it's just going to be a tad bit too tight. And then the rest of them are what runs on the outside through the bulkhead. You have the rear body, and then this bulkhead, or this grommet up here. You have the top of the engine, the oil pressure, water pressure, coil, power for the distributor, and the alternator wires are going to run through there. So pretty much good to go. Again, this will be out of the way. This will be out of the way. You'll have plenty of room. Put your gauge in, and that's pretty much it. We'll hook up a cigarette lighter to this accessory here, most likely, and then once everything's good, I can go back and I can put the little clamps on, like this horn relay here, so it's not flopping. I can either zip tie to the bottom of the gauge or bottom of the fuse box or somewhere else, so this just isn't flopping around. It's little things like that that make a good wiring job better than some of the other crap, you know, because he'll be driving and then all you'll hear is this rattling. So you want to take care of that. We will either bolt it, clamp it, zip tie it somewhere, but we'll do that. One of the last things to do once we confirm this is kind of where everything's going. So that was pretty much the hardest part, just getting kind of everything in there and not losing your mind while you're doing it. That's why I like to separate stuff and kind of, you know, if you need to draw it before on a piece of paper, draw it before. Say, hey, this needs to go to the left side, this needs to go to the right, this needs to go in the middle. And that way everything's zip tied. Run it where it needs to run, and then you can go back and make it pretty. Then you can go back and decorate the cake, is what I call it. So once it's all there and it's good to go, then you can go back and cut all those ugly 10, 15, 20 extra zip ties that you had, and then branch them all together, zip tie them all together, and then it'll work out just fine. So take your time. It's pretty easy. We're going to go ahead and pretty much call it a day on this, because I need to get that bulkhead back before I start wrapping everything up, because that will move that fuse box probably about an inch, inch and a half closer to us, which is fine. There's still enough slack, but I can't really do anything with the front wiring until that's done, and which then I can't do anything with the gauge cluster and all of that. So I'm pretty much waiting on that to be done, and then the steering column as well to be put in so I can hook up the reverse light, the brake switch, stuff like that. But this is the biggest part. The rest of it is very easy. The rest of it is just cutting it the length, making it look pretty, and putting connectors on it. So congrats if you got to this far on the job. Okay, so starting on other stuff, once we got this all knocked out here for the time being, I went ahead and I wrapped the dome light and the fuel gauge wire in some tape, not electrical tape. Please do not use electrical tape. They actually make wire loom tape. I don't like taping wires if I don't have to, but with it being ran here to the rear for the gas tank and for the dome light up there, I do like to tape this section of wire. I put tape here because I wasn't commissioned to do the interior. I'm not sure what's going to happen with sound deadening, carpet, door seals, or anything like that for the time being. So I just put tape right down here to hold where it is. But you can see that I taped it up into the bright switch there. And then it's going to get a connector here that's going to run up so you can fish for the dome light. I then ran the gas gauge light up here. I put two connectors, or two little clamps, just to kind of hold it. I mean, it's not tight at all. You can still move it, but I went ahead and installed those, just two of them, to keep them up off of, you know, the floor, to keep it from falling or anything like that. And then I'll put a connector here and connect that on there. But it's pretty simple. The dome light's going to be the hardest part. It's going to go in from the inside through the paneling, and then I'm going to have to fish it out down here, and then we'll put a quick connector on it right here so you can easily disconnect it if you need to pull the dome light off. But that comes in a kit. That's not too bad. Hardest part's just getting it all the way up through here. You're going to have to get some what I either do is plastic airline for like air suspension, or really thick gauge wire that tends to not bend real easy. That's all done. Next step is to run it out of the firewall and down the driver's side frame rail for the rear body. You can see there, and run it out to the taillights. All right, guys, and that's it for episode 2 of the wiring job on the 68 C10. I appreciate everybody stopping by. I know it's not the most glamorous videos and different things like that. Wiring is super hard. That's why a lot of people don't do videos on it. You can't really get the camera into where you need to be. There's a lot of tight spots, and lighting's hard and stuff like that. So that's why a lot of people don't do the wiring videos. But I kind of wanted to hit on it here and there to see maybe I could help you out, maybe kind of show people what's involved on something like that. So yes, I know it's not the most fun videos to watch and different things, but it is part of a build, and it's something that is needed on these vehicles. So I appreciate y'all watching. Please subscribe. That helps me a lot. Helps me able to afford, you know, the microphones and the better cameras and the better lights and different things like that to bring y'all better content. It really does. So please hit the subscribe button. I will be hitting probably one more video on the wiring until we have to move on, until we get the engine and everything else where we can button up the rest of the wiring. So we got about one more episode after this, and then we'll move on to something else. But I did want to hit on it just to show everybody kind of what's involved. So I appreciate it, guys. Thank y'all, and we will see y'all in a little bit.